There are moments when the heart stands at the edge of despair, staring into a future that feels sealed shut, doors locked, paths erased. Not because you lacked effort, not because you didn't pray hard enough, but because Allah in His wisdom brought you to a place where nothing remains but Him. And it is here, in this sacred emptiness, that the soul is invited to finally rest in its Creator. Allah was never absent from your struggle. When the road disappeared, when plans collapsed, when the heart whispered, "I don't see a way anymore," that was not the end. That was the beginning of a deeper unveiling. Allah says He is Al-Latif, subtle beyond comprehension, arranging outcomes in ways the eyes cannot trace and the mind cannot map. What you perceive as loss may be divine protection. What feels like silence may be Allah working in realms unseen. The human heart aches because it was created to hope. It breaks because it clings. It grows weary because it wants certainty in a world that was never meant to offer it. You waited, you prayed, you held on while everything inside you felt like it was unraveling. And yet, this is where faith transforms pain into purpose. This is where sabr is no longer just patience, but unwavering trust. Choosing Allah even when answers don't come, choosing hope even when outcomes remain hidden. Remember, the Prophet taught us that victory does not always arrive in the form we expect. Sometimes it arrives as resilience, sometimes as detachment from what was never meant to stay, sometimes as a door opening after you finally stop knocking on the wrong ones. This was what sabr truly means. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of Allah in the pain. Every day return your heart to one truth: Allah is sufficient. Say it when fear rises. Say it when your plans dissolve. Say it when you cannot see tomorrow. Place your trust in Him, not because the path is clear, but because the one guiding you never errs. When you surrender to Allah, He does not leave you stranded. He creates a way, not always around the hardship, but through it, shaping you, healing you, and carrying you closer to Him than you have ever been before. And when the way finally appears, you will realize it was never about the destination. It was always about learning to trust the one who creates paths where none exist. There are times when the human mind reaches its limit, when logic exhausts itself, and every visible option disappears. In those moments, the heart feels trapped by what it can see, by what it can measure, by what seems possible within the narrow frame of human understanding. Yet Allah was never bound by that frame. His power does not move according to what appears reasonable or predictable to us. What feels impossible to you is merely unseen to Allah. What feels blocked is simply waiting for a command from the one who says, "Be," and it is. Allah creates outcomes without needing the causes we rely on. He opens doors without keys, provides without resources, heals without medicine, and saves without warning. The mistake we often make is measuring Allah's ability by our own limitations. When the heart says there is no way, it is speaking from fear, not from faith. Because faith knows that Allah works beyond what the eyes can trace and beyond what the mind can plan. Allah says that He provides from where we do not expect. And that promise is not poetic language, it is divine reality. Often, Allah allows the illusion of helplessness to strip us of false reliance. When every support crumbles, when every plan fails, when every person falls short, Allah gently removes the distraction so the heart finally turns fully to Him. This is not cruelty. This is mercy. Because as long as we believe our strength comes from something other than Allah, we remain anxious, fragile, and afraid of loss. When the heart truly understands that Allah's power is limitless, fear begins to loosen its grip. You no longer panic when the future looks unclear. You no longer collapse when control slips away. You begin to breathe differently, trust differently, and surrender differently. Because you know that the one holding your life is not restricted by circumstances, timing, or human capacity. He is the creator of causes, not dependent on them. And He is always guider over all things. There are moments when life brings you to what feels like a wall. A place where effort no longer moves you forward. And every familiar path suddenly ends. The heart panics at these dead ends, believing that being unable to proceed means being abandoned. But in the divine language of Allah, a closed road is often not a rejection. It is a redirection. What feels like being stopped is sometimes Allah gently turning you toward what you could not see before. Allah closes paths that would have exhausted your soul, even if they look promising from a distance. He seals doors that would have delayed your growth, even if your heart was attached to what lay behind them. And He does this not to deprive you, but to protect you from futures that would have slowly drained your iman. The pain of being redirected hurts because we are attached to our expectations, not because the direction itself is wrong. When the way forward disappears, Allah is teaching the heart a sacred lesson. Guidance does not always look like movement. Sometimes guidance looks like stillness, confusion, and waiting. Sometimes Allah removes momentum so the soul can realign with what truly matters. In those pauses, faith is refined. The heart learns to listen instead of push, to trust instead of force. Allah sees destinations you were never meant to reach and endings you were never meant to endure. When He redirects you, He is saving you from versions of life that would have broken you slowly and quietly. What you call a dead end may actually be the mercy that prevents a greater loss. And when the heart finally surrenders to this truth, it begins to understand that every redirection carries divine care. And every closed door is quietly guiding you toward a path written with wisdom, growth, and a nearness to Allah that you could not have found any other way. Pain has a way of whispering the most dangerous lie to the heart. The lie that says you have been forgotten, that Allah has turned away, that suffering is proof of distance. But pain, in the language of faith, is not abandonment. It is often preparation. Allah does not distance Himself from the hearts He is shaping. He draws them closer through trials that awaken reliance, humility, and sincerity. What feels like breaking is sometimes Allah making space within you for something far greater. When Allah prepares a soul for a higher station, He loosens its grip on what it once depended on. He allows loss so the heart learns what truly remains. He allows disappointment so hope can be purified from expectations tied to creation. The pain is not random. It is measured, intentional, and wrapped in mercy, even when the mercy is hidden behind tears. Allah knows exactly how much the heart can bear, and He never tests without also nurturing the strength to endure. The prophets, the most beloved to Allah, were not spared from pain, they were shaped by it. Rejection refined them, loneliness deepened their trust, delays strength, then their certainty. Pain became the language through which their souls learn complete surrender. And this is how Allah prepares hearts even today, not because they are weak, but because they are capable of carrying something sacred. In moments of pain, the heart is softened, stripped of arrogance, and emptied of illusions. It becomes more receptive to divine closeness. Du'as become more honest. Tears become acts of worship. The soul turns inward and upward at the same time. And in that vulnerable turning, Allah plants resilience, wisdom, and a depth of faith that ease and comfort could never cultivate. Tawakkul is often misunderstood as calm confidence, as a steady heart that never trembles and a faith that never wavers. But true tawakkul is far more intimate and far more human. It is choosing Allah even while fear is still present, placing your trust in Him while the heart shakes and the future remains unclear. Tawakkul is not the absence of anxiety. It is the decision to rely on Allah despite it. There are moments when the heart wants guarantees, signs, timelines, and reassurance. Yet Allah invites the believer to trust without seeing the full picture. He asks the heart to lean on Him when outcomes are hidden and when prayers feel unanswered. This leaning is an act of worship. Every time you say, Allah is enough for me, while still hurting, still waiting, still unsure, you are practicing tawakkul in its purest form. The heart that truly trusts Allah understands that outcomes are not its responsibility. Effort belongs to you, but results belong to Him. Tawakkul frees the soul from the exhausting burden of control. It allows you to move forward without being consumed by fear of failure or loss, because you know that whatever reaches you was written with wisdom, and whatever misses you was never meant to stay. Allah does not ask you to be fearless. He asks you to be faithful. He does not ask you to understand every delay. He asks you to surrender to His timing. And when the heart learns to trust Allah in trembling moments, something beautiful happens. Anxiety begins to loosen. The weight of expectation lifts. Peace enters not because the situation changed, but because the heart chose to place its trust in the one who never fails, never forgets, and never mismanages the affairs of those who rely on him. When the heart waits longer than it expected, it often begins to interpret silence as refusal. Du'as rise daily, tears fall quietly, and yet nothing seems to move. It is in this space that the soul becomes vulnerable to despair, forgetting that Allah's delays are not denials. What feels like postponement is often mercy unfolding at a pace the heart cannot yet comprehend. Allah never withholds out of neglect. He withholds to protect, to prepare, and to align. A door that opens too early can lead to harm the heart was never ready to face. A blessing that arrives before its time can overwhelm rather than heal. Allah, in His perfect knowledge, sees what the heart cannot endure yet. And so He delays, not to disappoint, but to strengthen the vessel that will one day carry the gift. In waiting, faith is refined. The heart learns to detach from outcomes and attach itself to Allah instead. It learns to seek closeness rather than control. This is why waiting is never wasted in the sight of Allah. Every moment of patience is recorded. Every tear is witnessed. Every whispered dua is preserved. Allah says that He is with those who are patient and that divine companionship is itself a form of mercy. Often, when the answer finally comes, the heart realizes that it needed the waiting more than the result. The delay taught resilience. It taught humility. It taught surrender. It shaped a version of the soul that could receive with awe. Losing gratitude and love without losing balance. What once felt like absence reveals itself as careful timing. And what once felt like disappointment becomes evidence of a Lord who knew exactly when to give, exactly how to give, and exactly what the heart truly needed. The heart often believes that speed is mercy, that relief must come quickly to be meaningful, and that healing should arrive the moment pain is acknowledged. But Allah's timing operates on a wisdom far deeper than urgency. What He delays, He does not neglect. What He withholds momentarily, He perfects silently. Allah's timing heals what rushing would destroy, because some wounds need space, reflection, and surrender before they can close without leaving the soul fractured. If Allah were to grant every request at the moment it was made, the heart might remain unchanged, unrefined, still attached to what harms it. Immediate relief can sometimes mask deeper lessons that need time to surface. Allah allows the process to unfold slowly so the soul can grow strong enough to carry the outcome without being broken by it. In the waiting, the heart learns resilience. In the pause, it learns reliance. In the silence, it learns to listen. Allah knows the exact moment when the heart is ready, not just for the blessing, but for the responsibility that comes with it. Some gifts require maturity. Some answers require clarity. Some relief requires the heart to first let go of what it refuses to release. Rushing the process could heal the surface while leaving the root untouched. This is why Allah's timing is always precise, even when it feels painful. He aligns healing with wisdom, growth with readiness, and relief with lasting peace. What arrives too soon may satisfy desire but leave emptiness behind. What arrives at the right time settles deeply and remains. When the heart begins to trust Allah's timing, patience softens into acceptance. And acceptance opens the door to a peace that is not dependent on speed, but on certainty that Allah never delays without purpose and never heals without fully restoring what was broken. Sabr is often mistaken for silence, for suppression, for a quiet endurance that hides pain and pretends strength. But sabr in its truest form is not passive waiting, it is active certainty. It is the strength of a heart that continues to trust Allah while everything inside it aches. Sabr is not giving up desire, it is restraining despair. It is choosing hope when disappointment feels easier and choosing faith when answers are delayed. True sabr holds the heart steady without hardening it. It allows tears without losing trust, grief without losing gratitude. A patient heart does not deny pain. It refuses to let pain define its relationship with Allah. It continues to pray, even when the tongue feels heavy. It continues to believe even when the path feels long. This kind of patience is not weakness. It is spiritual resilience rooted in yaqeen, in certainty that Allah sees, hears, and knows. Allah honors sabr because it reflects deep iman. Anyone can trust when life is easy, but sabr appears when comfort is removed. It is in hardship that patience becomes worship. Every moment of restraint, every suppressed complaint, every time the heart says Allah knows instead of why me, sabr is being practiced. And Allah promises reward without measure for those who endure with faith. Sabr does not rush Allah's plan, nor does it resist it. It stands firm within it. It teaches the soul to remain upright while storms pass, to remain connected while outcomes are unclear. Over time, sabr reshapes the heart. It deepens humility, strengthens reliance, and purifies intention. The heart becomes less reactive and more reflective, less demanding and more trusting. And in that transformation, sabr becomes not just patience, but a quiet, unshakable strength anchored in the certainty that Allah never wastes the endurance of a believing heart. Qadr often feels frightening because it asks the heart to accept what it did not choose. The soul struggles with outcomes it did not plan, endings it did not want, and turns it never anticipated. Yet divine decree is not chaos, it is precision, guided by perfect knowledge. Allah's qadr unfolds with a wisdom that sees the entire picture, not just the moment that hurts. What feels unfair to the heart is often mercy that will only reveal itself with time. The human being sees a single thread of the story, while Allah sees the entire tapestry. A moment of loss may protect from a lifetime of regret. A delayed answer may guard the heart from a future it could not survive. Allah does not decree without purpose, and He does not allow pain without meaning. Even when the heart cannot understand the reason, it is still held within divine care. Accepting qadr does not mean denying emotion. It means surrendering judgment. It means allowing the heart to grieve without accusing Allah of injustice. The Prophet taught us that true faith includes belief in divine decree, even when it is difficult. This belief anchors the heart when the world feels unstable. It reminds the soul that nothing unfolded randomly, nothing slipped past Allah, and knowledge, and nothing reached you except what was written with wisdom. When the heart submits to qadr, it finds relief from endless questioning. The need to rewrite the past softens. The burden of if only begins to lift. Trust replaces resistance. Peace replaces inner conflict. Qadr teaches the soul humility, reminding it that control was never truly in human hands. And in that surrender, the heart discovers a quiet strength, knowing that the one who wrote its story did so with knowledge, mercy, and a care deeper than the heart can fully comprehend. There is a closeness to Allah that is often born from breaking. When the heart shatters, it loses the strength to rely on itself, and in that weakness, it leans fully toward its Creator. Broken hearts are not discarded by Allah, they are drawn nearer. Pain softens what comfort hardens. It humbles what success inflates. It strips the soul of illusions and leaves it bare before the one who heals. When everything else falls away, the heart finally listens. Du'as become quieter but deeper. Words are replaced by tears, and tears become a language Allah understands intimately. In moments of heartbreak, the soul turns to Allah not out of habit, but out of need. And that need creates sincerity, the kind of sincerity that invites divine closeness. Allah is near to those whose hearts are wounded, because those hearts are open. They no longer pretend strength. They no longer cling to false sources of security. They no longer demand control. A broken heart stands honestly before Allah and says, I cannot carry this alone. And Allah responds with nearness, with gentleness, with a presence that does not always remove the pain, but makes it bearable. The Prophet endured heartbreak, loss, rejection, and grief, and through those trials, his reliance on Allah deepened. His tears were acts of worship. His patience was strength. His closeness to Allah was forged in moments of vulnerability. And this is the path many hearts walk today, not because Allah wants to hurt them, but because He wants to bring them nearer. A broken heart is often closer to Allah because it has nowhere else to go. And in that turning, Allah replaces despair with tranquility, loneliness with companionship, and confusion with a quiet certainty that even in brokenness, the heart is seen, held, and never abandoned by the one who heals all wounds. Letting go is one of the most challenging acts of faith because it asks the heart to release what it has clung to for comfort, identity, or hope. The human soul resists loss, and yet clinging too tightly can suffocate the very mercy Allah intends to send. Letting go is not weakness, it is an expression of deep trust, a surrender that acknowledges Allah's wisdom is greater than our desires. It is the heart saying, "You know best, and I place my hope in you alone." When we refuse to let go, we carry burdens meant for Allah to lift. We hold on to outcomes, relationships, or dreams that may no longer serve us, while Allah's plan quietly unfolds around us. Sometimes doors remain closed not to punish, but to redirect the heart toward what is better, what is safer, what is meant to nurture the soul rather than exhaust it. Letting go allows us to step aside from resistance and step into alignment with divine wisdom. The Prophet taught us through example how surrender and release can be acts of strength. He let go of bitterness, anger, and control over outcomes, trusting Allah to guide what was beyond his hands. This trust is not passive. It requires courage, patience, and humility. It is choosing contentment in the unseen rather than clinging to the seen. When the heart learns to release, it experiences a lightness that was impossible while clinging. Anxiety softens, hope renews, and peace begins to flow even amidst uncertainty. Letting go does not mean giving up on what is good. It means trusting Allah to provide what is best. Every act of release becomes a step closer to reliance, to surrender, and to the profound understanding that Allah's wisdom is perfect and that He will never abandon the soul that turns to Him in trust. Life often presents walls where we expect doors, obstacles where we expect ease, and endings where we long for beginnings. In these moments, the heart feels trapped, convinced that there is no way forward. But Allah, in His infinite wisdom, is the creator of possibilities beyond human vision. He has the power to open paths where none seem to exist, to create light in places of darkness, and to transform impossibility into opportunity. What feels blocked is not the end. It is the beginning of a divine intervention that the eyes cannot yet perceive. Allah does not work within the limits of human logic. And all efforts fail when plans collapse and when every familiar road disappears. He quietly prepares a way that aligns with His knowledge and mercy. The heart, desperate for a solution, may not recognize it at first. But Allah's guidance does not always appear as a grand opening. Sometimes it comes as a gentle nudge, a shift in perspective, or an unexpected door that was never considered. The key is trust, surrender, and patience while waiting. The Prophet showed us through his life that reliance on Allah is the ultimate source of direction. Even in the most hopeless circumstances, he trusted that Allah would create a path where human effort fell short. This is why hearts that surrender to Allah find solutions appearing in the most unexpected forms. What once seemed impossible becomes achievable. What once seemed distant becomes near. And what once felt lost returns with mercy and ease. When we allow Allah to guide, we realize that His creativity and power are limitless. Walls are not permanent, dead ends are temporary, and obstacles are invitations to witness divine facilitation. The heart that trusts in Allah begins to see that every closure, every difficulty, and every moment of despair is part of a process where He alone can make a way where none exists. Healing begins the moment the heart stops resisting what Allah has placed in its path. Often we fight circumstances, cling to what is lost, or try to rewrite outcomes according to our own understanding. But true healing emerges when surrender replaces resistance, when the soul stops demanding control and starts trusting the one who knows what is best. It is in this surrender that pain transforms from a burden into a teacher, guiding the heart toward growth, resilience, and closeness to Allah. The human heart tends to resist discomfort, fearing that release means loss. Yet, Allah's wisdom teaches that Clinging to what cannot remain only prolongs suffering. When the heart submits, it begins to align with divine purpose, allowing Allah's mercy to flow where rigidity once blocked it. This is why the Prophet emphasized reliance on Allah, showing that peace is not found in forcing outcomes, but in trusting Him with what we cannot control. The soul begins to rest when it recognizes that Allah is sufficient for every need, that every wound has a healer, and that every trial carries a lesson designed uniquely for the one experiencing it. Dhikr, remembrance of Allah, becomes a balm for the heart in this process. As the mind returns to Him, the soul softens and the grip of anxiety loosens. Each whispered prayer, each humble acknowledgement of His presence opens space for tranquility to replace turmoil. Healing is not always immediate, nor does it always remove hardship, but it reshapes the heart, allowing it to endure, forgive, and hope. The more the heart surrenders, the more it experiences the subtle and profound peace that comes from knowing that Allah is both the knower of what has passed and the guide of what is to come. The heart finds its truest alignment through dhikr, through the gentle remembrance of Allah. In the chaos of life, when worries weigh heavily and the mind races with uncertainty, returning to Allah becomes an anchor. The act of remembering Him is not simply a ritual. It is a practice that restores perspective, calms turmoil, and reconnects the soul to its source. When the heart engages in dhikr, it begins to see that its struggles, though real and heavy, exist within the care and knowledge of one who never forgets, never errs, and never abandons. Dhikr transforms the inner state by shifting focus from what is missing to what is present. Allah's mercy, presence, and sufficiency. Every repetition of His name, every reflection on His attributes draws the heart nearer, softening anxiety, dispelling fear, and quieting restlessness. The Prophet taught that hearts grow soft with the remembrance of Allah, and indeed, even in the most difficult moments, dhikr provides clarity where confusion reigns, patience where desperation arises, and hope where despair threatens to settle. Through dhikr, the soul learns to surrender continually, not out of obligation, but out of love and awareness of Allah's constant presence. It aligns desires with divine wisdom and reshapes longing into trust. The repeated acknowledgement of Allah's greatness reminds the heart that it is not alone, that every pain, every delay, every unanswered question is within His knowledge and control. When the heart makes dhikr its companion, challenges no longer feel insurmountable. Obstacles become reminders of reliance, and waiting becomes an opportunity to draw closer to Allah. The rhythm of remembrance creates a space where the soul rests, fears are tempered, and trust grows. In this sacred practice, the heart experiences a subtle, enduring peace, a reassurance that Allah is near, guiding and sustaining every moment of its journey. Hope in Allah is a light that never fades, even when the world around us grows dark and uncertain. The human heart often wavers between despair and longing, between fear and desire. But placing hope in Allah transforms that tension into a steady, quiet strength. It is the belief that no matter how dire circumstances may appear, the one who commands the heavens and the earth is fully capable of turning things around. Hope anchored in Allah is not naive optimism. It is a conscious choice to trust in His mercy, wisdom, and timing, even when the heart cannot see the path ahead. When hope rests in Allah, the soul learns resilience. Setbacks are no longer permanent defeats. They become reminders of reliance and opportunities for growth. Waiting becomes an act of worship rather than frustration, because the heart knows that what is meant for it will come at the right time, and what is not will be replaced with something better. This hope nurtures patience, fortifies faith, and softens despair, creating a sanctuary within the heart where divine trust resides. The Prophet exemplified hope in Allah through every trial he faced. Rejection, hardship, and loss never extinguished his vision of mercy and ease from Allah. He taught that even when human effort fails, the one who sustains the universe is never incapable of providing relief, guidance, and blessing. Following this example, the heart that hopes in Allah does not succumb to desperation, even when outcomes seem uncertain. It holds on to dua, gratitude, and reliance, knowing that the one who writes destinies is both compassionate and wise. Hope in Allah is never misplaced. It is the anchor for a restless heart, the quiet courage in the face of uncertainty, and the assurance that even in waiting, loss, or pain, divine mercy is unfolding. It teaches the heart to trust, to persevere, and to believe that Allah's plan, though unseen, is perfect, intentional, and infinitely wise.